Savvy, the TAtech webcast that's about all things recruitment advertising and recruitment marketing. My name is Peter Weddle. I'm the founder and CEO of TAtech, and I'd like to welcome you to this show where we're going to talk about a pretty important topic: the quality conundrum and predicting success for job candidates. I mean, it's one of the most important things that recruiters have to do, and there's no better person on the planet, I think, to talk about this topic as my guest today. His name is Madhu Modugu. He's the CEO of Leoforce. Madhu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate you inviting me to your show.
Happy to have you here. So let's begin by having you tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself and about Leoforce.
Excellent. So I'm basically a tech guy. At least I claim to be a tech guy, and started a tech company back in the very early 2000s. And accidentally, we got into consulting and staffing. And because of our background, we tried to bring some of those IT processes into the staffing organization, and that wing of business grew pretty fast. So we focused a long time in the staffing side of our business, and the challenges we found in the business were like, when we are trying to identify candidates, we have to have a massive recruitment team. When we look at the delivery of recruitment team, we have like 15-20% of great performers, and then 30-40% average performers, and rest is below average. And the biggest challenge I had back then was, how do I make these average and below average performers to match the star performers? So that's how the idea of Leoforce started, and the idea of ARIA started then. The first idea was, how do we create successful patterns and replicate them with everybody so that everybody can perform at a high level, and increasing the recruit efficiency was the basic idea when we started. But when we went to market with that, the big problem that we faced was, how long your AI is going to take time to learn. Is it not taking recruiter biases into the hiring process? So that's when we went back to the table and say, what? It's not just about recruiter efficiency. How about we focus on candidate quality? So that's how ARIA got into candidate quality. So my background is more on the technology side. That's what I'm always fascinated with, and that's where I spend most of my time with. So yeah, I can speak like this for hours, but
No, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So when we're talking about predicting success, of course, the most important aspect of that, it seems to me, is the criteria you're going to use to assess job candidates. And the most important one of that is quality. Now, when we're talking pre-hire quality, there are all kinds of measures. One measure, of course, is similarity. It's a favorite of hiring managers. Hire me someone just like Joe, who's a high performer on staff there. And others use, sort of the checkbox method, where you look for the candidate who has the most number of check marks in the box for the job's specified requirements. So where do you come out on all that, Madhu? How would you define candidate quality?
Excellent question, Peter. This was the first problem we solved when we brought ARIA outside of our platform, Leoforce platform, and make it ATS agnostic. What's the philosophy that we can use to define a candidate quality? So we took a philosophy and we defined the problem a little differently. The problem we defined is, what is the probability of success for a candidate within this job? So that is the problem statement we define. And then we used a philosophy like having skills and experience is not enough for somebody to be successful in role. They need to be able to work together with other team members. They need to be able to easily fit into the processes that new organization have and the practices they may have. So you have to look at this from different dimensions point of view. Their exposure to certain skills, certain practices, certain cultures. So how do we understand that probability of success? So we don't have to determine whether a candidate is good or bad in isolation. It's always with respect to the position where this person is going into. So when we look at a job, it's not just the job and that role and its skills and experience. It's also holistically, what company this job belong to, what role this belong to, what kind of occupation this role belong to. And we look at this job from different kind of dimensions, including the competition of this organization. And then what we need to do is we can use all these great search engines, contextual search engines, which we also have one of it. I mean, that's what most of our competition have, very contextual, smart search engines. But having good keywords doesn't define somebody's ability to perform better. So we take that smart search engine, we bring all those relevant candidates that potentially can perform a job and put it in a multi-dimensional queue and understand what are the probabilities these folks have to be successful in their role. So that is how we kind of define, how close you come with respect to the rest of the population, with respect to that philosophy that we say, it's your exposure, it's your alignment of your exposure to different dimensions. So be it skills, so be it practices, so be it the processes, the tools, all of this combined makes up, what's the probability of success. So that's how we define a candidate quality, rather than just looking at only, check boxes or sometimes people use this assessment tests as well. Even it's fine, it does what it does, but again, it's a point of time test. So everything has its pros and cons of assessing a candidate quality. But in ARIA, that's what we look at. We just look at the data, purely calculate the probability.
So obviously, that's a much richer analysis of a person and their quality, not only for the job, but their quality for the organization, quality for the leadership culture that's there as well. And I want to come back to that, but for a moment, let's deal with the reality of the poor recruiter on the ground, because it's not only his or her judgment about a candidate. They work inside an organization, and there are other stakeholders in the process that organization uses to bring candidates in the door. And of course, chief among those is the hiring manager. And I wonder if in your experience as you deal with your customers and you and the research that you did, how often is it a problem where the way that the recruiter defines quality is not the same as the way the hiring manager does? I mean, we've heard countless stories, or at least I have, of hiring managers want a candidate with a PhD when an associate's degree will suffice. They want somebody with 15 years experience, and that's their definition of quality, versus someone or where the job really only requires 3 or 4 years of experience. So have you seen this process problem, I guess is the way I'm trying to describe it? It's hard enough to get our arms around a definition, and we'll come back to that. But what about the process?
I think it is an age-old problem, and my view is it will certainly will continue to have this kind of a problem, because just look at it. in a regular, if you look at simple data, even with large corporates, they open up a job. Let's take an example of a contingent job. They open up a job, and these 10 staffing companies try to submit profiles, like 2 or 3, and they can only hire one, right? So, and even in a corporate recruiter scenario, they always send multiple candidates. There's always multiple back and forths. And that clearly tells us what is in the mind of hiring manager is different than what is actually written in job description. In all fairness, it's very hard. And what understanding of recruiter from the job description. So this gap always existed, right? And all practical purposes, in my view, it will continue to exist as well. So how can we deal with this problem is one of the challenges we also have. When we started deploying ARIA to our customers, we say, hey, this is a great candidate. What do you think? And hiring manager is like, no, this person doesn't have this skill, that skill. They only have 4 years versus the degree that you mentioned, right? So, and we went back and say, you know what? Data suggested this is a great candidate, but the manager is the guy, final gatekeeper to give in the offer. So what we looked at is how do we solve this problem? So we kind of created an intelligence about the competition or the role. Hey, look at this. This is a role that you have in your organization, in the industry, or with your competition. And this is the relevance of this skill. This is the relevance of the education for this role. Maybe, this person may not have this skill, but they have the other skill. Acquiring a skill doesn't take much. So we tell them these are transferable skills, these are trainable skills, and these other qualifications are how much relevant are they to the job when we look at much larger data. So we kind of depended on how do we educate and provide more richer information to hiring manager as well as recruiter, right? It's not just what is written in the job description, or it's not what the bias of hiring managers. Sometimes hiring managers do appreciate what exactly is the competition doing. How are they able to finish this job? So this intelligence about the market and the job will generally help in closing the gap. But generally the gap does exist because the way the process works. Somebody creates a job description and somebody have to read and understand in their own context. So that will always exist. So you have to have some middle ground to educate both sides.
So just before we go on, you've used the term ARIA a couple of times. I'm not sure all of our viewers would know that that's your solution at Leoforce. So can you just, let's pause and just tell us a little bit about that particular solution as a product, if you will, of Leoforce.
Great, thank you. So ARIA is the AI that we developed over the years. It's almost like 9th year we are having 7th generation models. The philosophy of ARIA is how do we understand a candidate and calculate the probability of success within a role. That's what I was talking earlier. So this is the AI piece. It has multiple models, a bunch of neural network deep learning models come together, and starting with understanding job, understanding the market, understanding the candidate, and calculating the probability of success for a candidate with the role. So that is the AI piece. And this ARIA AI can sit on top of any ATS or VMS, any CRM systems. So it can help not only source candidate, but even if there is an inbound candidates coming from job advertisements, it can also look at and create its own score. Hey, the candidate looks fine, but this is what the probability of success looks like for him in the role. So this is the AI piece of Leoforce.
So if I understood your description of the way it works, it sounds like what the solution does is create a channel of communication so that you can help to eliminate that dissonance between the two different versions of quality, and bring everybody sort of into a common language, if you will, of talking about what for this particular organization, and quality is idiosyncratic to all organizations, but for this particular employer at this particular time in this particular market, this is the definition of quality, and you can get that consensus, which ultimately, it seems to me, not only improves outcomes but improves efficiency. Have I got that right?
Absolutely. You nailed it.
Okay, good. So let me ask the next question, because I'm sure for all of the recruiters and recruitment leaders out there, they have been overwhelmed with all of the talk and increasingly the regulations around the use of AI, concerned about the probability, or the potential, I should say, of unintended or even intended bias. So how have you been able to guard against that with the development of ARIA?
Yeah, great question. We spend literally years of time, and we continue to spend on that. Um, so there are two types of biases, in a very broadly, if I have to classify them. One is systemic uh, biases that have already ingrained into the data. This is how things have been done in the past. So naturally, the data do consist that kind of biases. And then there is the biases of the people that use the system, right? There's a bias outside the data. So um, the way that we handle the systemic biases is we developed algorithms, and also we work with some third party to see if any of the features are being biased. So in our models itself, uh, are they getting biased? So we developed an independent model to see uh, is data itself having some issue. So when the data is having an issue, then what we can do is we can kind of reduce the dependency of the system learning from that kind of feature. So that's one way we kind of try to handle the data-driven biases. And also, what we do is, we also go to third party and say, hey, this is how it works. How about, I know these are some of the jobs, and this is how we are finding candidates. Can you see if our system is giving any biases, or do you observe any biases? So we also give it out to third party, and we publish that report. When it comes to the user side biases, the way that we try to handle it is by providing more information, educating the users, right? And to a large extent, obviously this is not a driven by emotion. This is not driven by a bias. This is simply driven by data. That's what we try to tell them. Sometimes it is not necessary. It works 100% perfect in a practical world. Sometimes there are certain roles, they require certain type of certifications, maybe certain type of security clearances, right? So sometimes data show that, sometimes data doesn't have that. So then somebody have to tell the system, hey, this is a mandatory thing, so the system should pick it up.
I'm so glad you said that. I wrote a piece for our newsletter last week, and it had a provocative title, which was basically that AI doesn't free up recruiters to do the things that they do best. And I was just trying to make the point that when you use technology, any technology, not just AI, at the end of the day, it's successful if it enables you to get rid of work that is redundant, process oriented, administrative, so that you can do the things you do best. But you have to also understand that all systems, not just AI, but all systems create new jobs. I mean, for example, as you just said, you want to use this wonderful product to create this common understanding of what quality is in an organization, but you have to look over the shoulder of the technology and make sure it's getting it right, that you just can't flip a switch and say, okay, the human's out of the loop now, my problems are solved. I wish it were that way, but it ain't. You gotta be the master of the technology, not its victim.
Absolutely. I mean, has been a lot of conversation about it, especially regarding AI. There are a lot of dangerous side effects of AI when you talk about AGI. But in our case, we are not so dangerous. So
we're not there yet.
We are not there yet. But yes, you are absolutely right. And the human intervention is absolutely needed. But as you rightly said, how do you leverage the best things you can do as a human, right? The emotional connect, the connect you can make with a person. That's where, as a human, we have the best of the best abilities compared to some technology. Even if you find a great bot to engage, but you still can't connect. So that's where the humans come into play. But also the places like this, we need to make sure, is this working right? Is there a feedback loop? Is there somehow the system is constantly looking at learning things from day-to-day operations of the users also? So there are multiple ways you need to have that feedback loop, and that absolutely have to come from humans. But on top of it, this human aspect of bringing somebody into an organization. It's not a body you are bringing; it's a person you are bringing. So that human connect, I feel, is essential.
So we've talked about ARIA and the product. Can you give us an example, a use case where it's been applied so that people can get a sense of how it actually works in the real world?
Yeah. So when our customers implement ARIA, the way that we implement is we go and integrate with their ATS systems or CRMs they may have majority of the times, and some people may have VMS systems as well, vendor management systems. And then when we integrate, what happens as soon as a job is created in their ATS or in their system of record, ARIA naturally automatically brings within seconds, almost real time. And then the first thing ARIA does is it actually analyzes the whole job. It kind of creates a comprehensive intelligence for both searching and scoring. But we want to get a quick intervention from our recruiter, say, hey, this is what the description says. We understood. This is what the market is looking like. Is there sometimes what happens is when you have high volume of jobs, people don't pay attention to what they write. They just want to copy paste. Many times, more than you would ever think, you will get completely wrong job descriptions. And even like garbage in titles, garbage in descriptions. So we want to make sure, even though the technology like ours do understand to a large extent where it's coming from, but still we want to make sure, is there any nuances are in this role, whether it's a certification, whether it's a special type of skill that is required, or is this the real job, or is something else, is somebody copy pasted? So we want some kind of a human intervention in between. Once they confirm that, then what ARIA does is it goes to all different kinds of channels, so be it job boards, so be it their internal ATS databases, so be it a lot of social data that's available. We ourselves have more than 600 million kind of profiles that we collect, so we can train our models. So we bring all of this data and then we consolidate the results and bring them, give them one set of results. Hey, what about these candidates? And this is what we think. And they can go through those candidates. So they don't have to put any such criteria or anything like that. System does automatically for them. It provides them the intel. But when we give the list of candidates back to user, we also take some feedback. This is the candidates we think are good. What do you think? Do you like? Or if you're not liking, can you tell me what's going on here? And it takes that feedback and takes the feedback for the future job. Sometimes they can even work on, okay, I looked at these 4 profiles, they look good, but I need a little bit like this. So Arya can go back and do the work of a sourcer, and it brings the next set of profiles. And then once they have, we also have a platform to engage using conversational AI. So we can use some conversational bots to engage with texting or emailing or putting them in a campaign. The system can automatically do that with just one click. And it'll also help people to kind of leverage technologies like ChatGPT. What's the best way to personalize the message? Even though we always recommend them to put their own personal thing, but we also give them the capabilities to have a generative AI give them, okay, this is how a personalized message also looks like. So we have the Connect platform as well as sourcing platform, and then intelligence platform where people can understand more about their jobs and candidates as well. Even when we propose a candidate, this is something I haven't seen any other company do, is when we propose a candidate, we do tell them, hey, this is why we think it is. Even though we don't see these skills, don't worry, I think it's easy to pick up. These other skills help him to kind of transition into these new skills, right? And I know you asked for this degree, but if you look at this data, this degree's relevance is not so much. So don't worry too much, right? So we give them that confidence with the data. And this is why potentially you should consider this person. So it does majority of the mundane tasks, but also the provides the information typically very hard for a human to get all of that into one simple document that they can share with the hiring manager. So that is in a nutshell.
Pretty big nutshell.
Yeah.
So that's great. So is it best used for high volume recruiting? We were talking before the show about some pretty esoteric jobs like pediatric nurses, that kind of thing. Where does the technology have its greatest strength?
So naturally, wherever as I told you earlier, we have the 600 million profiles, but they're classified into various roles in various industries and all. The more the data we have, the better the performance would be. So a high volume roles is pretty easy for Arya to pick up. Even low volume we can handle as long as this is not completely new job.
Right.
So these days you always get these new jobs. When a new job comes, because it doesn't have data, it just have to depend on the descriptions and the inputs from the user. It does the mundane task. It still goes into all the other channels, try to find people and bring them. But it will depend a lot more on the user. Okay, I haven't found too much information. How about you give me a little more information so that I can go and find. So majority of the time, lateral jobs, it's very good. And volume jobs, it's pretty good. So if it's a very niche jobs, then the dependency on the recruiter and hiring manager is more.
But the beauty of good AI is that it learns. So for every new job, that automatically becomes an old job, goes into your database. The system is smarter that way. So each subsequent customer of yours benefits from the experience of the prior customers. It's like a learning system in some respects. Well, as always, we never have enough time to cover this topic. I'm intrigued, continue to be intrigued with the challenge of pinning down quality in organizations. It's so important. I think the war for talent has morphed into a war for the best talent. And the employers that can use technology, that can find the recruiting team that's passionate about hiring quality candidates, will in fact help their employers to succeed in the marketplace ahead of the competition. So Thanks very much for joining me today, Madhu. For those people who'd like to know more about Leoforce, what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
No, we will put out our contact information out there, but anybody who is interested to have a conversation with me, they can absolutely reach out to me on my email. It's madhu.modugu@leoforce.com. I'll be always fascinated to talk to the people in the industry. That's how I learn and evolve. But our team will also put out information related to how to contact us in the description.
Great. Well, thank you again for joining me today, and thank you to all of you who signed in and saw our show. I hope you learned a lot. I know I certainly did, and I hope you'll come back and see us again for another episode of RecAd Savvy, the TAtech webcast about all things recruitment advertising and marketing. See you next time.
Thanks, Peter.